We're going to get into more about the funding of Taliban. I mean, we're funding our own demise here. I mean, have you seen any positives? Is anybody doing anything?
No, and actually, Al-Qaeda makes a joke out of the fact that they move the money we give to the Taliban to the camps that train the homeland attackers, right? So it's almost like an insider joke, like, yes, we are forcing America to fund their own attacks. So that is the plan, too, that the money will go back to us and our government. And then that makes Americans also look at our government like it's an inside job. You knew it, right? And so Al-Qaeda is going to play that game, which is really interesting. Al-Qaeda found the Building 7 conspiracy stuff fascinating. And they have actually had discussions about how we could do ruses and bring in the Building 7 people to make them blame their government more. So they're actually even looking at our conspiracies and targeting those people for the homeland attack. So basically, those people almost back Al-Qaeda as revolutionaries and rebels and heroes against our government. Kind of like how the Hamas supporters do it.
All right, so we have a list of stuff to go down here. I think since we're on funding the Taliban, let's start there. But, you broke that news first. You broke $40 million a week was going to the Taliban, funded from State Department to all these different NGOs. Then our mutual friend Legend came on. He broke that it was actually $40 to $87 million a week. Then, we're also, Scott Mann has confirmed it, former Green Beret Lieutenant Colonel, retired. Then me and Scott went to Vienna to interview Masood, who is for everybody that hasn't seen that, that's the leader of the commander of the Afghan resistance. And he confirmed it as well. And so we've actually put a petition out. I just looked at it this morning, as 382,000 signatures. I'm going to link the petition below again to spin that out again. And we sent that to McCall. Nothing. From what I understand, not one thing has been done. Why do you think Congressman McCall hasn't done it? It's because, I see these reports he was drunk at the airport. Maybe he's just too drunk to actually do anything. Or maybe he's too busy. It's the other story I hear about him all the time is the insider trading shit. Has he done anything? Anything at all?
No, the problem is, it's kind of like they bring these people in front of Congress, they give them 5-minute sound clips, right? They make a little bit of news off it, but there's no then action, or there's no plan to do any accountability. And then they say, yeah, Americans, we did what you wanted. We brought Tyler Andrew Vargas on, right? But what has he done for him since it happened, right? And this is the big problem with Congress. People say, these Congress people aren't doing their jobs, but they keep voting them back in, right? Like, we complain about them, but no one's actually holding their feet to the fire to do their job. I honestly don't think we're going to get anything effective against the Taliban, right? I mean, your congressman, Representative Burchett, he put the money in to stop the bill to stop the money going to the Taliban. It's sitting in the Senate. I don't think anyone's picked it up. Nancy Mace tried to do the bill to actually designate the Taliban a terrorist organization. I heard a number of Republican Congress people reach out to her and gave her a hard time about it. So that's completely dead. We can't even get our Congress people to call them a terrorist group, and they're beheading people.
Why? What's behind that?
My theory is we have some people who haven't thought this through because of the Ukraine war, and they think we can especially use someone like Sirajuddin Haqqani as a counter to Russia. That there's no other explanation for the amount of money we're putting into this, because it's not just up to $87 million a week. That's only the money we fly into Kabul. Right? We send money other ways. One really great example is we fund the Taliban's political office in Qatar. That's not the 87 million. There's at least 10 million that we just pay their operating expenses a month. Completely separate. Yeah, we've been doing that since 2013. So this is not a new thing we've been funding the Taliban, right? We were funding them while they're killing our soldiers.
I just don't. Where's it hung up in the Senate? Have you heard any?
Well, I think
who's holding it up?
Well, I don't know if someone's holding it up. Basically, a senator, or hopefully a grouping of them, are supposed to pick it up, and then they shepherd it through the process, like they sponsor it. I don't think we've seen anyone pick it up to sponsor it.
What else should I be asking you about funding the Taliban?
Well, another thing is, just a couple updates from last time. Obviously the money hasn't stopped. But, we found out, so the Taliban has a supreme leader, right? Hibatullah Akhundzada. And we found out his budget just for his office is $48 million a year. Think about that. As a Taliban commander, that's just the budget for his office, like to run, how much is this? How much do you pay to run this a year? So we actually basically counted kind of the bags of money that go to him, from these weekly deliveries. And he gets a small cut compared to like Sirajuddin Haqqani, who probably gets 5-6 times what he gets. But we're giving him about $3 million a month. So we're almost funding his entire office. The US government is with counterterrorism dollars, right? The problem with this is we're basically playing both sides of the Taliban, and they're playing a ruse on us. So Hibatullah is what you call the Kandahari Taliban. That's just that original Taliban that Mullah Omar was in, that founded the Taliban in like the mid-90s, okay? Then you have the Haqqani network, right? Sirajuddin Haqqani, his father was Jalaluddin Haqqani. We famously backed him during the Mujahideen era. So these are kind of two of the senior leaders besides Mullah Omar's son, okay? And the U.S. plays them off of each other, but they don't. We think we're effectively playing them off of each other, but they communicate almost every day through Telegram. They do all their approvals together. They share information, but they use this fake kind of battle between them. So when they sit down with the Americans, they can say, oh yeah, here's the political crisis going on between the Kandahari Taliban and the Haqqani Taliban. And then America wastes a ton of time on that. And then they ignore the terrorism. They ignore, all of the murders going on, the apartheid against the women, right? So they're basically making us focus on an issue that doesn't even exist.
Wow.
Oh, and then one other thing, too, that's really interesting. So, how we have old man Jalaluddin Haqqani, right? He's one of the most famous people at the time, He has a brother. His name is Khalil, okay? So this is Sirajuddin's uncle. So his job in the Taliban is he's the head of refugees. So he has this really interesting scheme. We've put a lot of work into it since last time I was here. And what he does is he goes to basically the pot of money that we give for humanitarian. So this isn't the counterterrorism dollars, because the money that $3 million Hibatullah gets is our counterterrorism dollars. Well, Khalil goes right after the humanitarian dollars. And what he does is say, he collects $5 million a month in this one that we ran down. So he goes and he says, I need $5 million a month. This money goes to Afghans returning from Pakistan to be resettled in Nangarhar. What he really does with the $5 million is he gives it to basically another one of his family members, Abdulaziz Haqqani, and he brings it and drops it off at Al-Qaeda training camps. And that's our humanitarian dollars. And so they're basically lying and saying it's going to refugees. And I guess it is. It's going to foreign fighters from foreign countries. There's Libyans in these camps. But it just goes and gets delivered directly to terrorist camps.
How do we've abandoned the Afghan people. We're funding our own demise. Mm-hmm. What would you like to see? I mean, do you think we should be... I feel really bad for our allies over there, that we trained alongside with, we fought with, for 20 plus years. And we just left them out to dry, left all of the intelligence there, left the biometrics, left their addresses, left their fingerprints, left their names, and they're just getting assassinated in record numbers. And, how do you think we should be funding the NRF?
So I think we should fund a coalition of the resistance. Mm-hmm. So if you just do the NRF, in my opinion, and I hope I don't upset people, you can't win, right? Right? The NRF is mostly the Tajiks. You also have to bring in the Pashtun resistance, and then, the Hazaras. Like, you need a resistance of the different ethnicities and groups. That's how the Libyans actually did it and were successful, right? So you have to have a coalition or like a external government formed, and I think that's what we fund, and then we're funding multiple pieces of the resistance because each of them have different access in different areas, right? Each of them will be successful in different ways. Even the women's movement alone, right, has its own insider things you can take advantage of, right? So I do think we shouldn't pick just one resistance group. We should tell them, come together and, and we're here to back you.
Is there, I mean, that's, after my interview with Masood, I dug in a little bit more, and I didn't, Scott did, and you did, and you guys are the ones that feed me all that information, but it sounds like that, are they working together at all yet? Because it seems very compartmentalized, and it is, they need to get their shit together. It's getting a little frustrating.
Yes, they need to get their shit together, but I do think privately they do work a little closer. They have a public thing they do once a year. It's a Vienna meeting. It's not enough. I do see a little more collaboration between groups than people see, but I do see a lot of them undercutting each other. They do a lot of gossip, right? Like this person works with the Iranians, this person works with the Russians, right? And they're not thinking, hey, we're a united front against the Taliban, like our near-term goal is to defeat the Taliban, because even some of them are focused on their region. They might not even want to be Afghanistan if the Taliban falls. They might want their own region, right? So we don't have a catalyst yet to even pull all of them together, unfortunately. At least in the Libyan revolution, every single person wanted Gaddafi dead, and every single person, even the terrorists, right, were like, our goal, our immediate goal is to take him out, right? And they all came together with that immediate goal, but we don't actually have something like that in Afghanistan. And I think that's one of the complaints that has always occurred over the years. There are even pieces within, the Afghan community that have always downplayed the Taliban. So when I caught the number 2 of the Taliban, Mullah Baradar, right? So we caught him in Pakistan. He was in Pakistani custody. Well, when the Afghan government reached out to us, they didn't reach out to render him and put him in Bagram. They reached out and said, you need to release him. Why did you detain him? So think of how that makes the government look at Afghans. It's like, well, you don't really think that the Taliban's that much of a threat. You're asking them to release the operational leader, the number 2 of the Taliban, right? So we still have this problem where a lot of people still sit at the table with the Taliban, right? Khalilzad's really great example. So we also need to do something with these Taliban sympathizers because they're going to keep undercutting any kind of resistance. And I do think they're a part of keeping people split too. So yeah, they all have to come together. And, I've honestly said this frankly to people. So, Al-Qaeda's planning a homeland attack. And I've actually said to people in the resistance, if that attack happens and you guys haven't come together and you can't show us you're a capable force, we're going to Pakistan, right? I'm going to call up the Pakistanis and say, I'm going to give you a lot of money to take out Hamza bin Laden. I'm not going to call the resistance because you guys are infighting. You didn't come together. So I do think they need to come up with a plan. Even in Haiti, after those gangs took over, right away, they're like, oh, we made this interim council, right? That matters to the West. It might not matter to the people fighting and doing attacks every day against Taliban, but you need some sort of united front to get recognition.
Who do you envision